I'm going to.
All right, so official. Thank you so much. So I'm excited to kick things off. I'll introduce myself and talk about why we're here. This is the first working group session for the Indicators of Behavior OCA group. I've met many of you before, and I'm happy to continue our conversations and meet some of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. Because I don't know that everybody here knows everybody else, I figure one thing we could do is go around the room and introduce ourselves, tell us who you are, where you're from, and basically what you hope to get out of this group. And we'll have some time later in our session here to brainstorm some additional ideas and figure out which of those ideas best bubble up and when we want to talk further about them. So I'll kick things off. My name is Lodrina Cherney. I'm a part of Cybereason on the security team. And I see one of my colleagues, Maggie, is here as well. At Cybereason, I work on policy and standards, but that's in addition to the technical work I do outside of Cybereason, where I teach digital forensics. So both as somebody who's involved in policy and standard setting, and as somebody who, wearing another hat, gets to be involved in very, very nitpicky, technical, low-level work. I'm really happy to be here, kicking things off. And what I'm hoping to get out of this group, I'm thinking one thing I would like to do is some kind of position paper or statement paper, talking about what IOBs are and why they're important. So I think I'll popcorn it over to, we can just keep passing the microphone. Paula, could I pass to you for an introduction?
Sure. My name is Paula Lewandowski, and I've been at Johns Hopkins APL for almost a year now. Prior to that, I worked for 34 years at NSA, spent 15 years deep entrenched in cyber operations. So what I'm trying to do on behalf of our sponsor, DHS and CISA, is to work on trying to understand the behavior of the adversary so that we could create like unique objects for information sharing. That's our main focus. And Charlie Frick would have been here, but he had a family emergency come up, but he's also working with me on this at Johns Hopkins. So again, we're just hoping to develop a good relationship, especially with the folks that are looking at some of how sticks, the standards and things that kind of need to be worked on or looked at as we try to figure out how to best share information. Thanks. So I guess I pass it to, it says Oasis Zoom team. So I don't know if there's a whole team there or just one person.
Hey, that's me. Hi, I'm Dee Sher with Oasis. Have been with Oasis for quite some time. I'm involved in supporting the technical committees and the OCA Open Project. And that's it. And I'll pass to Claudia, my teammate.
Everyone, I'm Claudia. I'm based in Berlin, in Germany, and I'm the Open Project Program Manager for Oasis. So I'm working with OCA and other projects to help you get your work done. That can be anything from setting up GitHub repos or managing Slack channels or facilitating meetings or whatever you need to get your work done. And so I'm looking forward to hearing more about this working group, and I'm happy to be here. And I'll pass on to Margaret.
Hi, everyone. Really nice to meet you. My name is Margaret Cunningham. I have a weird background. I have a PhD in experimental psychology. I work for ForcePoint right now in their behavioral analytics team. And my expertise is building human performance metrics and measuring people stuff for a range of use cases, from insider threat-based behavioral things to more traditional types of cybersecurity behaviors that people are more well-versed in. And I really want to help, build a better understanding of humanness into this field. So I hope that I can contribute that type of subject matter expertise. And I agree on building something or having a paper to offer that outlines the importance of behavioral or IOB things in this world, either from understanding adversaries to understanding performance limitations that occur within our organizations. Oh, and I have to pass it on. How about Jason?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm not sure what the order is here. The menu keeps reshifting. So I'm Jason Kierstead. I'm the CTO of Threat Management for IBM Security. So that includes all of our threat detection and response products. I'm also the co-chair of the OCA, the Open Cybersecurity Alliance. Yeah, and I'm very interested in this working group. It's highly applicable to the work that we're doing in IBM and everywhere. And we've actually got a couple different IBMers in this call. So actually, maybe I'll hand it over to Roseanne next, I guess.
Hi, my name is Roseanne Gutierrez. I work with JK and also Russ, who will be talking here. I'll hand it to him next. I work as a technical enablement specialist with IBM Security Technical Alliance Program. And my background is in critical infrastructure security and also digital forensics and computer investigation. And really interested in getting more information on indicators of behavior and kind of, just learning more about how it works and being involved in this group. And handing it over to Rich. Excuse me, Russ. I keep calling him Rich. He's going to slap me.
Is it my turn or is it Rich's turn? This is Russ. Hello, everybody. I also work with Roseanne in IBM Security. We are on the business development team. We do a lot of work with alliance partners, integrations. I've been working at IBM for over 40 years, and it's ironic. Most of the work I'm doing has been integration work or connections work. Back in the days where networks didn't talk to each other and PCs didn't talk to each other and storage didn't talk to each other. So I always love to try and make that work and collaborate across different environments. I'm also acting in OCA as a program manager, spending most of my time running the architecture work group, which has been going for a long time, laying out how all our projects fit together and trying to define the collaboration approach OCA is taking with their projects. And one of my goals here is obviously with the IOB work you guys are doing is make sure we relay that into the architecture that the OCA has and try and bring the other projects in where appropriate so we can connect dots and bring things together. So that's kind of what I'm here for. And free pass, whoever wants to go next.
See, we still have Balaji. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hello all, I'm Balaji. I'm also from IBM. I'm a threat researcher, and my short spot will be on threat intelligence, behavior classification, and actor group classification. And nice to meet you all here. Thank you.
And I'll jump in so I'm not last, just to make sure you guys all have very lofty backgrounds. I'm going to come in a little flat here, but my name is Josh Cody, and I work with a company called ThatDot. We are very new to the industry, and we are implementing indicators of behavior in our application and doing real-time behavioral analysis based on a streaming graph system. And so basically figuring out how we can codify these signals and analyze them in real time. And so we're here to learn and to help define something that I think that we can have a huge impact on. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. And I think we have two more people. We have Maggie.
Sure. Hi, I'm Maggie McAlpine. I'm also at Cyber Reason. I'm hoping to just participate in the process and hear what everyone has to say about IOBs and really be on the cutting edge of that. And my background is about 10 years in cybersecurity startups, and most recently before Cybereason, I was in one focus on election security. So I'm not sure if that will contribute to this specifically, but that's what I've been doing. And I'll kick it off to whoever is left.
And Daryl.
Yeah, Daryl.
So.
Hey, thanks for including me. Can you guys hear me? I can't tell if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm an executive threat advisor with IBM, working with JK and the rest of the team occasionally, but I'm more client facing background, Gartner, HP, EMC/RSA, big data, Oracle, SAP. So I come more from a business traditional background, consultative, right? On the Gartner side, working with CIOs, even chief operating officers on the supply chain and other things related on value chain strategies. And then, and now in the, not now as in just happening, but over the last 10 years in cybersecurity, coming in because I see a fundamental problem around time to discovery, and then chasing a lot of window dressing. So just trying to see how the user part of it, I really see, when I think of the threat landscape, I really think of user services and assets. And from the user angle, I really want to understand, because I think that's where it's the highest risk, right? Because you can't mitigate people behavior, even through training effectively, as we've seen over the last 20 years and beyond. So I just want to see how this goes and what limitations there are with regard to behavioral monitoring as it relates to threat.
Great. Thank you, Daryl. Is there anybody else who joined during our introductions, or anyone else who hasn't gone? Okay. So I'm going to reshare my screen, and thanks everybody for those great introductions. While everybody was talking, I was listening and taking notes on some things that top of mind were folks were wanting to get out of this group, and playing with Google Jamboard here, just adding some stickies of things I heard. So for the benefit of folks who might be audio only and not connected to screen share, so far I'll mention we've got understanding how IOBs work, connecting those to an architecture, building a better understanding of humanness. And I see that somewhat connected to understanding our risks and limitations of this kind of framework, reducing problems around time to discovery, understanding adversarial behavior, and then really formalizing or just talking about what this all is. So I mentioned those were things that came up as top of mind in our introductions, but I can only imagine, especially for folks like Josh, who maybe are already doing this kind of work, that there might be some other things that you'd be interested in working on, understanding, thinking through together. So I wanted to open up the floor for anybody else who had additional ideas. So I'll continue to add those here for anybody who just wants to unmute and has other thoughts.
Oh, sorry, Josh, like he was going to say something.
I was going to say, I'm kind of cart before the horse on some of these implementations. We're trying to figure out, identifying behavior out of current data collection, techniques. This doesn't even include new data collection that we can get. But I'm very, very interested in about applying the humanness aspect. Our market pieces that are the piece that we talk about a lot is context around metrics, and that, just because a number says 7 doesn't mean that it's the same across the board. There's a contextual values with that are all behavioral that we think are going to be, very impactful.
Right. I was going to add something exactly to what, ironically, what Josh was saying, which is when you look at brain development, and I know this is going to sound crazy and off in left field, maybe to some of you, maybe not. When you look at brain development and neuroelasticity and the impact of technology adoption, and people calling it cybernetics, and I'm not going to criticize or just stating those things. When you look at that and you look at different generational adoption, not not exhaustively, because you can't sort of put everybody into a category based on that, but it helps to get some macro views of trends in terms of how human behavior interaction with technology. I'd love to see how that's introduced into this discussion to talk about limitations, because if we don't operate with a clear understanding how the psychology drives behavior and how adoption is driven psychology, then we can all talk about the technical aspects of it, but we'll sort of be starting with the wrong problem. Does that make sense? And I'm a firm believer, if you don't have the problem clearly defined, and the limitations in addressing it, then you're just beating the wind.
Hey, Daryl, I agree with you as a psychologist working in this space. I think that when we talk about IOBs in particular, depending on where you come from, what your background is, the tools you're familiar with, the collection or the data that you're used to dealing with, you may have a different definition from someone else. So
that's right.
I think that one of our preliminary challenges will be defining what we mean by IOB, what counts as a behavior. Does it have to be measurable? If so, do we have the ability to measure it now? And where would that come from? So it's kind of an odd thing, but if you're looking at something like user activity monitoring, it's much more straightforward than looking at something like representing human behavior with DLP data. But not said that we couldn't do both, right? So those are some of the weird nuances that I deal with all the time. So there's sort of like a maturity framework that could coincide with this. Like, what are the definitions? What does it look like now or at early stage adoption or maturity? And what might it look like over time if you had the advantages and support of, different data sources, different technology, different analytic capabilities? I'll quit rambling.
Yeah. I was gonna just add to that too. Oh, sorry, somebody else was gonna say something. I apologize.
Oh, hi. Yeah, thanks, Daryl. I was just gonna say, so just to emphasize the defining the problem, Sticky, it seems like we actually have two different threads going on, right? There's around, when we talk about indicators of behavior, there's a thread here going on around user behavior and user, I would almost say in the user behavior analytics domain and behavior of users, which is fundamentally different from threat actor behavior and indicators of threat actor behavior chains. So I think defining that in those two different areas and which one we're focusing on or both or the work streams is important too, because they're fundamentally very different. If we're talking about threat actor behaviors versus user behaviors.
Yeah. And I would say along exactly what you were saying, Jason, that's a really good distinction to draw, because when I think about the problem, from a threat actor standpoint, I'm opportunistic or looking for a polar's path of least resistance, right? Just the whole Occam's razor principle, and people and whatever their drivers are that led to the behaviors. The reason I said I started with the psychology part of it and the adoption and the historical trend, the reason that's useful is because if the problem has built up so much momentum from a gross general behavior standpoint, then it helps you, when you understand that, to really count the cost of what it looks like to then address the problem. And then when we present it, it's more meaningful. To your point about the threat actors, that's the flip side that reaffirms when we look at the threat landscape, and then we look at when we look at the sort of the path of entry that they utilize from a human standpoint, a human behavioral standpoint, as people interact with technology. The threat actors are going to reaffirm anything we're seeing in the behavioral trending, or they'll disqualify it, right? In some cases, they can be a good litmus test to whether or not those drivers are aligning with what the actors are exploiting, So I think one will really generally, like you're saying, inform the other, almost like a feedback loop. So I'm eager to see how we talk through that. Sorry, I've spoken 3 times. I'm counting because I talk too much. So I'm trying to limit myself.
This is all very great and relevant. Definitely thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Margaret, especially. I love the balance and application of looking at this problem from the different perspectives. I wanted to add one note which came up in a previous PGB meeting. And I know Forrest isn't here, but I'm going to attribute this idea to him, which is getting some kind of language. I'm going to say a technical implementation or language to go along with IOBs. And I think because we've had all of this context around everything else that's already on the screen, I think that maybe the conversations about the technical implementation, which we've thought a little bit about at Cybereason, and the work about connecting to an architecture might be a little bit cart before the horse when I look at all of the just general user behavior information, defining the problem certainly before we come up with a technical solution here. But I also wanted to keep it open for any other suggestions and ideas.
I mean, just to map it out, right? So we've got position paper, and then tech implementation, and there's crawl, walk, run. Like, I'm not sure if one of the initial goals is we should try to create a plan, a roadmap, or, you know, a set of goals for the work group over the next, you know, quarter to a year type of thing. I don't know. I don't know if we want to write this down, but.
So I'm also at risk of talking too much. So, you know, we're on the behavior side. I think we have quite a few experts here who understand external threat behaviors. And then experts are people who focus more on internal, like behavioral risk linked to an entity, whether it's a person or a device or whatever. So, you know, why we would care about the behavior could be one way to kind of bucket things. Like, is it detection of a threat from an external person? Is it coming from inside or whatever? And it might make sense to like dig on either side with people who are interested on either topic area, and see how the definitions of behavior align or deviate from one another. Is an organizational sort of idea.
Yeah, this is excellent. I was going to ask next, out of everything here, where our commonalities lie and what seems to be our first step. You know, as I think Jason said, crawl, walk, run. What is our crawl step? And I think from there, we could take it to a lot of other places over, you know, thinking about next quarter or next year. But I was thinking about where do we all consensus share where we want to start?
Can I make a suggestion? If we're breaking working groups up into competencies and passion, like things that that might be a place to just start with us, right? What parts of these are we more excited about? And then creating some kind of categories, so that as we work together, we'll see more collectively and keep feeding each other. If we have, you know, if we're all working in that category, and then that would be just a suggestion.
I mean, I do think it'd be helpful to, if we mapped out, the crawl, walk, run of a timeline, like say, and I'm just making this up right now, just as an example, say by the end of August, we plan to have a position statement on what this work group is trying to achieve, and be, 2 or 3 pages on, what we say an IOB is, what we're trying to achieve around collaboration, et cetera, et cetera. And then okay. And then by the end of 2021, we want to have, some kind of a proof of concept, and then, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I think mapping out goals is really helpful, because then, having a goal, even if it ends up getting pushed, it's something to drive to. And when you have a working group without a roadmap, you just end up just discussing things forever. And that's just my experience.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Definitely, we have to, and I agree with you. And I can tell you from somebody who would like to talk indefinitely versus have goals all the time. I agree with you that it's important for people like me that you put something in front of us that we're driving towards, not necessarily something that's absolutely clearly defined, but just like you'd put it, or maybe anyone else who might put it, just that we're driving towards, hey, we're going to have this defined. That's our hope or goal, but we can move it if we start to see, man, this is going to take a little bit longer. But having it there, I agree with you, is useful.
I'll say personally, I'm somebody who is very deadline driven. Purpose driven goes along with that. But I'm liking, JK, what you just threw out there of saying, hey, by the end of the summer, and I acknowledge that, even within this group, I hope that there's going to be some vacations, and, not everybody will be able to make every session to be determined. But maybe by the end of the summer, we say, this is the purpose of this working group. Here's what we want to achieve, whether what we achieve is defining and sharing the problem, but gaining consensus around that in the next few weeks. I'd be happy to hear if there's any other, let's take that crawl step.
I think that is a good first goal, and because it's something that, you'd think we could achieve, and it's a good, I don't know what Ladrina, you mean by then is summer. I assume end of August, early September. If we put a date there, I would hope that we could have, 1 to 3, 2 to 3 pager on what our goals are, formalized by then. Should be something we can do.
For anybody here, I want to ask, is that something, if there was, say, a couple page paper or some kind of similar output, would that be useful to anybody here, either to take into your organizations or to take into other external conversations related to projects that you're working on?
I mean, from my perspective, it would be incredibly useful, because, if we had, this is similar to the reason that we, drove hard, and Russ knows this, to create that brief, the OCA brief, is because we were getting asks from people, where, do you have a 2 or 3 pager I can read about what the OCA is and what it's trying to do? So, because if we have that IOB document, then it makes it really easy to share, right? As we're talking with other customers, as we're talking with other partners, you can just, it's a leave behind that you can say, hey, this is something you might be interested in getting involved with.
I'm going to add one more thing that I just heard from Jason. I don't know if you meant to say this, but also expanding the concept, expanding and sharing this information. which I know JK and I talked about this in one of the previous meetings we had. And it's just the idea that, you know, I'm here because IOCs aren't cutting it. With the amount of work that our analysts at Cyberism have to do, that our customers do. IOCs are great. And I think that kind of relates to the idea of bringing up a maturity framework. We're going to continually have to do more. It's almost like we have to do more with more. There's a bigger haystack. And for me, how can IOB help be that needle that rises to the surface?
I just thought of something else. I'm wondering if, you know, as we try to schedule upcoming meetings and stuff, I know that, you know, there are folks involved here that may already have some prior work and thinking in this space. Like I know that Paula, for example, not to put her on the spot, but I know that, you know, there's a lot of previous work in this space over at JHU APL. I'm not sure if we should try to, you know, how do we schedule the, you know, sharing of that type of information among the different people, like, you know, here's all the things that we already know. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because I think just like the awareness and knowing what everybody else's niche is and where some of the gaps can be filled or would be very important.
I
So
would
this
love
this is Russ. I'll add to your expanding and sharing IOB information. I think there's two audiences we probably want to address. One is the ones that are consuming this, and the other one's the ones that may supply it. And I think we have different messages for each, but we probably want to be clear on who we're addressing.
So it might be nice before the next meeting to maybe, if we do have resources out there on that people have worked on or that they know exist, maybe we could have a central place that we kind of put links to that stuff so we could kind of look over it and then have that as something that we could talk about in the next meeting as well.
Roseanne, I love that idea, and I'm looking at maybe Dee and Claudia. Do we have central file share location, or maybe is Slack or email a better place to share resources?
Well, we want to put it in GitHub.
I think Dee just said we try to focus things on GitHub, right? But it depends on what kind of material it is. Not everything works well in Markdown format. I don't think we have another file sharing.
We've been using Box.
Yeah.
For some of our stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a couple of things like Nextcloud would work as well, which is an open source solution, which is similar to Dropbox or Box. I don't know, Slack, we can have a Slack channel, obviously, for discussions for the group, and set up a GitHub repo and a email group. Just you need to let us know what is working for you and how you want to conduct like discussions outside of these meetings.
I mean, GitHub works. Challenge with GitHub a little bit is it's sometimes a steep curve for sharing files, like a lot of the stuff we're probably talking about here, PDFs and PowerPoints and things of that nature. And sometimes these folks aren't all developers, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know that there's an OCA marketing Google Drive?
There's a Google Drive we're using. Yeah,
But I don't know if we want to use that for this, because isn't it for marketing only?
No, we have different folders out there. I throw stuff out there. The ontologies out there. There's a bunch of stuff.
That would be good if we could do a folder there for the work group, Because
can
we
put a
already
folder out
have the
there.
Slack channel, right? So we could do, comments in the Slack channel already there in under OCA. But then if we could have the Google Drive or the folder in there to
Mhm.
put the information, that would be great.
So we've got that Groups IO channel too,
Right, that's true.
that accepts files. How great it is about file sharing is probably not, Google is probably better that other people can have edit access.
So I want to make an ask for me. I'm a very, I don't know if the right word is like visual or auditory, but I'd be interested in having maybe Paula, between you and Charlie, maybe presenting some information, and we could do the same from the cyber reasons side. Do you have any interest in that? Like maybe a short presentation at our next session on here's our work, and we can all help level set.
Sure, I'll take that back to Charlie, because I know he's been doing a lot of outreach with the ISACs, and I know some of that has been approved by our sponsor DHS to share. So, as long as everything we have is approved to share, I think that should be good. So I'll mention that to Charlie when he comes back, and I'll have him reach out to the group and provide some timelines that might work for him.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. And I think that also acknowledges that as far as sharing files and sharing information, there might be some information that might be better presented live. And then we can adjust recordings accordingly, depending on the sensitivity or availability of that information to be shared in a wider group. So I think at this point in our last 5 minutes, we can talk about cadence for a next meeting. I'm hearing consensus around both level setting with other people in the group around, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's take the work that's already been done and consider it as we move forward to define what our working group does. An interest in getting the working group definition really solid in the next 2 months or so. First, before setting a meeting, is there anyone who feels differently about that? All right, and I'm somebody who is usually not a talker, so happy to hear feedback. But given that, maybe we start increasing conversation, starting these discussions more coordinating over email, and trying to find a time in 2 or 3 weeks to meet again and have somewhere between a 2 and 3 week meeting cadence to kick off
So
first meetings.
I would humbly suggest I would suggest we put it on the calendar now. Just, again, from experience, it's like having the date driven. It helps, because if we don't put it on the calendar now, then what might happen, what often happens is, we'll have a few sporadic discussions over email for a few weeks, and then we'll try to, be back and forth trying to schedule a meeting, and then it'll end, before you know, it'll be 2+ months.
Is this time of day something that works well for folks? I know, Claudia, you're in Europe.
I'm okay, it's fine. That works for me.
And I might be guessing here that a lot of the rest of the group is US based. I was going to suggest a similar time of day, and this is a different day of the week, but just looking at my calendar, August 2nd, which is a Monday. And that gives us about 2.5 weeks, split the difference between 2 and 3 here.
August 2nd is Monday in Canada, but don't hold things based on me. So.
All right. Well, for myself, I'm usually pretty flexible when we're looking 2 weeks out. That was just a date that popped up as far as hitting somewhere between a 2 to 3 week cadence. And maybe with a different day of the week, we might get a few more people who weren't able to attend today. So what I'd love to do is say thank you to everybody for your input. I'll get with Dee about sharing this recording out and also some of that note board and some notes, and we can coordinate offline about information sharing, maybe presenting information between now and our next session.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ladrina.
This was great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ladrina. So I'm going to set it up with a second, right? We're going to go with a second.
Okay.
Well,
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Dee, for your help.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.